Welcome to FPL Selection. Today we'll take a look at how the team is shaping up for Game Week 16, but first a quick look at how we got on in Game Week 15. So 48 points, small drop down to 390,000. It was a very poor week for my team. The majority of players blanking. Munoz didn't play, he was injured. So I only had a clean sheet and DEFCON from Senesi, an assist from Saka, and a week saving 18 points from Bruno Fernandes. He had 2 goals and an assist. So yeah, a week to forget, but we've all got 5 free transfers now, so yeah, I can refresh the team. And at the minute, I think I'm probably going to be using all 5, so we'll see how that turns out. So looking ahead now to Game Week 16, I've got 5 free transfers, as obviously everybody else does this week. Just quickly on that, I really didn't like the idea at the start of the season. I thought it was just going to make things a bit too easy and help a lot of people out that don't pay so much attention. But I'm really grateful for it now. Got 4 injuries and yeah, a bit of a mess. So yeah, it's just come at the perfect time for me really to get those 5 free transfers. I've already used the first one on Saturday evening. Enzo to Foden. I was talking about Foden last week, saying that, I think I'll probably get him in. It was more based on Palmer's performance, but after seeing him play well again, I think it just made sense to get that one done. So, yeah, it's nice just to get at least one out of the way. And as I did mention last week, Palmer was the other one I was looking at potentially bringing in. But I'm now looking to have both of them. It's definitely a little risky with him, as he's obviously only just coming back from injury. I believe it was a groin injury, which is just one of those that you just got to rest and, eventually it will pass. So fingers crossed, he's going to just build up his fitness. He got an hour against Bournemouth. He was left out of the Champions League game in midweek, which I'm assuming is he just couldn't play another game so soon. So hopefully he'll be, another week of training. He'll be ready to start the Everton game at the weekend and, another week fitter. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him in the coming weeks. So, if I can get sort of 60, 70 minutes and just see a little bit of, getting a few shots on target and getting in the right positions, I'll certainly be happy with that. I think the rest of my team is going to be fairly template. I think there's a lot of very popular picks, especially the front two of Haaland and Thiago. And I think most people are going to have Saka, Fernandes and Foden in midfield. Most people have a fairly similar defence, so yeah, I'm quite happy to have a nice little differential there. And yeah, it's a bit of a roll of the dice, but if I can get on him early, people playing catch up when he starts banging in a few goals, yeah, it might be a way to get ahead, I think. So yeah, happy to roll the dice there, and yeah, just obviously wait for the team news closer to the deadline, just to make sure that there's no setbacks or anything. Gakpo would obviously be leaving for him. Getting injured made that move easier as well, because I think there would have been a temptation to hold Gakpo with some good fixtures coming up. In order to get Palmer, I would need to sell Mateta down to Gurio. I'd be happy to do that because I think Mateta seems to be carrying a small injury. He's been playing sort of limited minutes recently, coming off sort of after the hour mark. So I just don't think he's justifying that 8 million price tag at the moment. I think without that hat trick he had at Bournemouth, I think a lot of people would have probably sold him a bit sooner. I was happy to keep letting him plod along, but yeah, it's just when he's not playing the full 90 minutes and you can see he's getting tired, and Palace have got a lot of games coming up. Yeah, I just think that money can be better spent elsewhere. The other midfielder I'm looking at is Dewsbury Hall. I was sure last week I'd be getting Anderson or Xhaka for my sort of cheaper midfield spot. But Dewsbury Hall, I have watched a couple of his games recently. He is a really good player and he gets into those good positions in the box. He's got the potential for a big score, as we've seen this week. So I think it's just a bit more exciting to have someone like that that's probably going to be first on my bench quite often, rather than a sort of 3 to 4 point Xhaka or Anderson. He's also a little bit cheaper as well. So I think he's going to be a nice option. He's going to be important for Everton as well when the likes of Ndai go to AFCON. So, there's going to be a lot more responsibility on him to be the creator and goal scorer. So, yeah, I think for his price at 5.1, it'd be a nice sort of 8th attacker first on the bench. I've also got Munoz, who's going to be out now for 4 to 6 weeks. This was obviously wasn't planned when I was thinking ahead, so this is where the extra transfers are probably going to end up going. Although I did have Anderson planned to come in for one of my cheaper defenders. But yeah, he's definitely going to come in this week. He's got 3 good fixtures. He's cheap. He's getting DEFCON really regularly. So you're always looking at sort of a 3-4 pointer minimum. It'll be perfect, to rotate that first bench spot with Dewsbury Hall. I think I'm going to play 4 defenders a little bit more often now because they just seem to be the ones with the consistent points. Then I'm also looking to get another defender in, which will be for one of my cheaper defenders. Like I say, I'm going to play 4 at the back a little bit more often. I've come to the conclusion that I want to continue with a double Palace defence. I think that's been going quite well for me. They're 5th overall for expected goals against. They've had 7 clean sheets this season. That's only 1 less than Arsenal. And they're just so threatening from set pieces. And also, I think most people will have one of their defenders. So owning the second one is just giving me that little edge when they do keep a clean sheet. I could go for Richards, who's the cheapest of the centre-backs. He's got decent DEFCON potential. But I think Guehi's the more exciting one. He's just been standing out all season. He keeps getting on the end of set pieces. Every time you see a Palace game, he's always the one that gets his head to things. And he's got 2 goals, 4 assists already this season. I'm not saying that will continue, but he's certainly putting himself in the positions for that, potentially to be a few more goals and assists for him. He's been okay for DEFCON, not as good as the likes of Lacroix, Richards, but he's hit it 6 times this season, and in the tougher fixtures, maybe that will increase a little bit. So, yeah, I think having that second defender for the clean sheets, he's got the potential to get goals and assists on the set pieces, and he's got potential for some DEFCON. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a nice way to upgrade the defence anyway to have 4 at the back. So in summary, Foden's in already. Anderson, 99% will be in before the deadline. I'd say I'm around 80% on bringing Palmer in. I've been thinking about it for a couple of weeks, and just with the injuries that have fallen, it just seems like a nice time to bring him in. And just, that'll be my little roll of the dice for the next few weeks. And as I said before, I would have to go Mateta down to Guiu and get Dewsbury Hall in for Potts. And that would just be so I can put him in my 11. And the Guehi transfer will probably wait for next week, because they've got City this week. So I think I'd rather play, Dewsbury Hall away at Chelsea for this week. So looking at the current team, first up the defence, Ramsdale's away to Sunderland. Really hard game to call this one. First derby between these two for many years, so both sets of fans will be well up for it. You can either see it being a really tight and nasty 0-0, or, there could be a few goals in the game. Not really too hopeful. Hopefully I can start getting the save points that Pope was getting. That would be nice, just as a minimum from Ramsdale. Because, not really that confident so far in what I've seen. But yeah, not going to hope for too much in this fixture. I think it's a bit of a lottery what could happen there, really. Senesi is away to United. Now, from what I understand, his injury was just a cramp last week. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit more in the press conference. But he's in at the moment, and, I'm already a little bit light in my squad, so it'd be nice if we can get him out on the pitch. Away at United, obviously not expecting too much, but he's Mr. DEFCON this season, so I'll happily take 3 or 4 points right now. That will just be absolutely fine for him. And then Anderson, I've put him in the graphic because I'm 99% sure he's going to be in my team come the deadline. He's away to Burnley. Obviously, one of the better fixtures for any team. And, I think Fulham's data has been decent defensively, but they just, these fixtures coming up now is going to be a good chance for them to get a few clean sheets. Anderson's been so good for the DEFCON this season. So you'd hope, Burnley being quite direct, he should get that again. So he's starting on 4 points. And obviously hoping for the clean sheet here. So potential 10-pointer on for Anderson. in that one. Then Lacroix is at home to City. Obviously not a great fixture. City playing well at the moment, scoring a few goals. The DEFCON against City is also not, the potential there is not very high because they don't tend to play too much direct balls in behind, and longer balls. They do tend to keep the ball a little bit better. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be much here for Lacroix. I'm just sort of hoping that maybe if they can shut up shop 0-0 or something, they might favour that. So yeah, it's just I like to play him every week because he's always got the DEFCON potential and set piece threat. So yeah, not really expecting much there, but yeah, I'm always going to start him every week. And moving on to midfield, Saka is at home to Wolves. We saw Wolves on Monday night against Man United, and they're really bad. If United can tear them apart and score 4 goals, then Arsenal can have no issue there. I think Saka didn't play Champions League in midweek, so I think Arsenal are going to want to make a statement here after losing last week. They're going to want to put a few goals in, and I'm hoping Saka's going to get sort of 60 to 70 minutes here, potentially more. And this will be the sort of game where he can run riot. I'm really confident on captaining him this week. I think you see Haaland's away at Palace. I think that's a tough game. I'd expect nothing more than 1 goal. Whereas Saka, I think, has got the potential for a few returns here against Wolves because, yeah, like I said, after seeing United play them, it's very clear and obvious that just the level of their players is not up to standard. And yeah, Arsenal are going to have a really comfortable day and score a few, I think. And Fernandes is at home to Bournemouth. As I've been saying for most of the season with Fernandes, you just never know when the big scores are going to come. Obviously, Wolves was maybe a little bit more predictable, really, but yeah, he can just throw those games out where you get 18 points, and it makes such a difference, and that'll bring his average up. He's the top scoring midfielder now in the game. There was a lot of doubts on him earlier in the season, but he's just got so many ways to score his points. He's always involved in everything United do. Even when United play badly, he's still, having a few efforts at goal and getting in the right position. So, yeah, any game he can score points. Home game against Bournemouth. Bournemouth are quite a chaotic team. They're like a back and forth game. So I think that suits United. We can play a little bit on the counter in some points. Just hoping that the likes of Mbeumo and Ahmad are going to be able to play this one before going to AFCON. Which obviously, give Fernandes more runners to put in behind as well. So, yeah, always confident Fernandes can pick something up, and I think this is a decent fixture for United. Then Foden is away to Palace. I don't really like this as an entry point for Foden. I think Palace away is going to be a tricky game. But just the way he's been playing recently, it just makes sense just not to wait. Get him in now. He's got great fixtures coming up after this one. The form he's in, you wouldn't be surprised if he scored anyway. So, yeah, it's not the best fixture, but yeah, the form he's in at the moment, it's worth having that double up with him and Haaland, the way City are playing at the moment. Gakpo's in the graphic there at the moment, but obviously he's going to be going out. Most likely be Palmer. And like I say, I'm going to wait till close to the deadline. But I think a home game against Everton, like I said, he's had the week off since playing an hour last week. Another week fitter. We all know what Palmer's capable of. So I'm just going to roll the dice, get him in early, and, just bet on the quality of the player there, really. Home game against Everton, it's not the easiest, but it's certainly not beyond Chelsea to score a few goals here. And yeah, if Palmer's, getting close to his normal level, then yeah, we know he's capable of putting away a few goals. So moving on to the forwards, Haaland is away to Palace. Like I said earlier, I think this is a tricky game for City. Palace have been really good defensively, and anyone that goes to Selhurst Park, it's a really difficult game. But City are in such great form at the moment, so I'd still expect them to win the game. But I just think it'll be a tight score. I'd be very surprised if Palace conceded more than 1 or 2. So I'm just taking the bet that Haaland's probably only going to get 1 goal, and Saka, is more likely to get 1 or 2 returns, which will be, worth more. So Haaland will be vice captain this week, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him score anyway because He's just in that kind of form, isn't he? The Mateta is there at the moment in the graphic, but most likely I'll transfer him out. And then probably Dewsbury Hall will end up coming in and he'll be starting in that spot as a fifth midfielder rather than a third striker. He's away to Chelsea. Obviously not expecting much there, but been much better than playing one of my cheap defenders this week, I think. And Thiago is at home to Leeds. I think it's a really good fixture for Brentford. Obviously any home game for them. They've been really good at home this season. Thiago's been banging the goals in. Leeds have been decent recently, had some tougher fixtures and sort of showed that, you know, they can play at this level, but I just fancy Thiago to get at least one goal because I don't think Leeds are going to keep many teams out, and especially Brentford at home. They're always going to create chances and everything seems to be falling to Thiago at the moment. So, yeah, I'd be very surprised if we come away from that and he doesn't have at least one goal. So in summary, I'm pretty sure I'm going to captain Saka this week. Unless we get something in the press conference that puts me off, but just think he had the full rest in midweek. They haven't got another game after this Wolves game for another week, so it makes sense he'll get good minutes, and you know they'll want to put another win on the board after losing last weekend. So yeah, I think this is worth a gamble this week. Go against the crowd. I think a lot of people will captain Saka this week, but yeah, I just still think there'll be a high percentage of people just permanent on Haaland. So might be a nice chance to make a little gain here. Haaland will be vice captain. Yeah, no thoughts otherwise on that. As I've said, Foden's already in. Anderson will most likely come in. Palmer will come in. I'm pretty sure that will happen now. Dewsbury Hall, and I'll have to downgrade Mateta to Gui to make that happen. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.